After a year of fixing stuff, you eventually find yourself needing more space. Now you can either rent another storage unit or you can get rid of some of the stuff that you've already fixed. That's what's happening today. I'm getting rid of some of the stuff that I've already fixed to friends and coworkers, but before I do that, I need to make sure all of them survive their long storage. In today's video, we've got a mixture of some really cheap items and some older quality items. I don't really have a preference when it comes to fixing or even using certain brands of equipment, and that's because I'm looking for ease of use and not name brands. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to use any old scrap pile or reject on my own lawn, but I hate to say it, some of them are almost ready for the scrap pile. The one item I'm going to miss the most is this newer Toro mower that I picked up about 2 years ago. After fixing it, it's just been sitting in storage doing absolutely nothing productive. Well, a friend contacted me wanting some equipment and wanted to know what mowers I had available. I mentioned several mowers and sent them pictures of each one. After looking at them, they asked me which one was the best, and at the time I told them this was it. I told them how reliable the engine was and what I did to get it working again, which was enough to convince them. They agreed to pick this one up along with the trimmer, which I'll show you in a minute. The biggest selling point for them was that it had a barely used mulching blade along with the bag, which they apparently never had a mower with one. They were quite surprised by how much work I had done to it, including the cleaning. I told them that it wasn't a vanity issue, it was more for function than anything else. Now, the air filter is not new, but it's in decent shape and will work for a couple of seasons so long as they try cleaning it once in a while. I'm going to take it out for right now because I don't want to ruin it if the carb should start leaking once I put fuel into the tank. So this mower came from my storage, and when I take things there, I empty them of all fluids. Now this keeps the risk of fire down along with the chances for any leaks as well. That means I need to put some oil in the engine before we try and start it up. It's very important that you do not overfill the engine with oil, and that's because it can cause serious damage to it. If you want to learn more about it, I would search for this topic and you should get all the answers you need. After checking the oil level, it's on the stick, which is just fine. I would like it near the full mark, but it's not going to hurt the engine where it is now. Next, I'm going to put fuel into the tank and watch for any leaks from the carb. The fuel I'm using is 89 octane, 100% gasoline with no ethanol, and it's also been stabilized. Now this test takes time, so I basically walk away for about 2 to 5 minutes and then come back and check on it. So I don't see any leaks, and I guess I'm ready to try and start it. If yours is leaking, try starting the engine and letting it run for about 1 to 2 minutes, then turn it off and then walk away and then come back and look for any leaks. If it's still leaking, I would replace the carb. So unfortunately it didn't start. However, I'm not worried just yet. What I'm going to do is manually prime it with some fuel, and this might be enough to get the carb working again. Luckily, it started, and this time it seems to run just like normal. I only let it run for 20 seconds, so the engine is still cold. The real test is to see if the engine will start on its own now. I want to try that one more time just to confirm that we were able to get the carb working again. So after manually priming it once, it looks like we were able to get the carb to work again. Not too bad for something that hasn't had gasoline in it for a couple of years. Now it's been a couple of minutes and I'm going to take another peek at the carb just to see if there are any leaks, and fortunately it looks like it's still holding. I know it seems like I'm being a bit paranoid when it comes to fuel leaks, but consider this. If you put fuel into this mower and it didn't start, you might put it back into the garage or shed until you have time to look at it. In that time, the fuel you just put in it will drip onto the floor and form into a puddle, or worse yet, into a small stream and run across the floor. This is a recipe for disaster, especially if there's a flame nearby. So yes, I do worry about fuel leaks because they can be quite dangerous. Next, we'll look at the two trimmers, and the first thing I want to do is to put fuel into the tanks, and since they're both two-strokes, we don't have to worry about any engine oil. After that, we'll prime the fuel systems and make sure that the bulbs partially filled with fuel. The second trimmer is a hyper tough trimmer I found lying in the road. It looked as though it had fallen out of someone's truck or possibly trailer. The ironic thing was that there really wasn't too much damage to it. The trimmer head was slightly bent and there was some scuffs here and there on the plastics, and that was really it. I don't really care for the build quality, but it sure took the fall pretty well. In a previous video where I serviced this carb, a lot of viewers mentioned a fuel leak that was visible in the video. I responded by saying I needed to tighten the bolts for the purge bulb and that should take care of it. The bolt that turned out to be loose was the one opposite from the fuel lines. Now after tightening them both, I pressed the bulb a few times to purge the air out of the system and it did not leak any fuel this time. The bulb does have some fuel in it, so we'll start it here in a minute. Next, I need to purge the air from the fuel system on the first trimmer, which is an older Echo. As much as I like the new orange Echoes, I still really enjoy using this version, and you can still find the style readily on the marketplace. Now, if the bulb does not partially fill with fuel, the engine is very unlikely to start. Since both have fuel in them, I think it's time to try and start them both. You know what, I think it'd help if I turn the switch to the on position. Yeah, that's right. I made a rookie mistake. I forgot to check to see if the switch was in the right position. In my defense, this is one of the few trimmers that has a two-position toggle switch versus a more conventional, normally open rocker switch, and yes, I am using that as an excuse. Let's try that again and forget the first part ever happened. To help keep something like this from happening again in the future, when turning off the trimmer, remember to move the switch back to the on position. Overall, this is a really good trimmer because it's very light and easy to use, which in my book is the only factor when it comes to the equipment I use. It doesn't matter if it's commercially rated or costs more than my TV, only that I can use it without getting tired and beat up after an hour of use. Next, we'll try and start the Hyper Tough. So this one starts and runs just fine, which is what I expect to happen after being stored without any fuel in the tank and the carb. Remember that even if you pour the fuel out of the tank, the lines and carb may still have fuel in them, so it's best to run them dry. Now, I would rather prefer the machines to be started and ran every week for 4 to 5 minutes at a time, along with fresh fuel being added when it gets near empty, but most people are not willing to commit to that sort of schedule. I hope the new owners treat their new used equipment with some care, and if not, at least contact me for advice on what they need to do. But then again, it's their equipment to do whatever they want with them, and if they want to fill their tanks with ethanol gasoline and the wrong oil mixture, well, that's up to them. This sort of equipment doesn't do anyone any good if it sits in storage, so passing them on to other people who use them is the best choice, and I hope they serve their new owners well. If not, we'll probably end up seeing this stuff sooner than later. If you had to choose only one of these items to have for a modest price or even a fair trade, which one would it be? The personal pace mower with electric start, a well-built Echo from 15 years ago, or a trimmer from a big box store? Personally, I'm split between the Echo and the Mower, but I have to go with the Echo, which in my mind makes a great product. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.